If you don't learn to read, think about everything you can't do.
What are you?
Her teacher approached me and said, there's this wonderful program, but I just didn't see any progress. She still couldn't read.
The only explanation that I think is plausible is that reading recovery actually does harm students.
Just do your best.
I can't. I don't know any of these words.
I don't trust that it has a negative impact on students.
If you could just walk a mile where we've been and what this does to a kid.
They tell me I don't try hard enough.
It's so simple to teach a kid to read, yet we make it so complicated.
Hi, I'm investigative reporter Andy Parati. Tonight, Atlanta News First investigates a method used to teach children to read for decades, recently banned in multiple states, but still taught in Georgia. The potential impact could be long-lasting. By fourth grade, only 1 in 3 Georgia students reads proficiently, according to a state assessment. Parents and experts are now calling for a reading reset in how children are taught.
There was no way. That's why you want.
That's why.
That's why.
Reading
No.
does not come easy for Sophia Quinn.
Think about that.
The 14-year-old struggles with dyslexia.
You in on the kidnapping too.
A few years ago, her first grade teacher in Gwinnett County, Georgia, took notice and offered to help.
Her teacher approached me and said, there's this wonderful program. We select one kid from each class, the bottom of the reading level. It's one-on-one. They're going to try and help her.
It sounded like a godsend.
Yeah, I felt like, oh, they're rolling out the red carpet for me. This is going to be great. I was so thankful.
After 20 weeks in the program, Sophia's reading did not improve.
What's the cheapest pet you got?
It seemed to be getting worse. And what frustrated her mother the most, the school called her daughter a success story and suggested passing her on to the next grade.
I felt like they felt I should be celebratory, like, oh my gosh, thank you. But I just didn't see any progress. She still couldn't read. So now all the alarms are going off, and I'm expressing my frustration with how are we passing her, but she can't read.
A-V.
This is Matthew Purcell. He was in the same reading program as Sophia.
Whenever I do my best.
A few months into it, his mother, Missy, noticed something strange. She says while Matthew was reading at home, she saw him guessing words using pictures on the page, not sounding the words out.
Third grade, level D.
Missy is a former school teacher herself.
Most of the time when he was reading, he was looking at the words and then the pictures, words, pictures, words, pictures. So he was reading pictures. He was being cued by the pictures.
What Missy is talking about is a reading method called 3 cueing. It's a theory where kids are encouraged to only sample the letters and the words in the text, relying mostly on prediction and context for comprehension. For example, a child may be shown a page with this picture and text. If the child can't read the word sad, they're often asked to look at the dog and ask themselves if the word they're thinking makes sense. Does it sound right? Does it look right? Some experts believe cueing doesn't put enough emphasis on phonics, sounding out words.
I remember it was kind of hard and stressful because they told me to guess and look at the pictures to spell the words and stuff.
Problems with reading and frustration lingered after leaving the program.
Can't read it.
Here's Matthew about 4 years later.
Just do your best.
I can't. I don't know any of these words.
The program Matthew and Sophia were enrolled in is called Reading Recovery. It's one-on-one instruction for the lowest performing students in first grade struggling to read.
Does that make sense?
This is video of a reading recovery teacher in Kentucky posted on YouTube 9 years ago. The teacher repeatedly stops the child from sounding out words.
Why are you doing that? Quit doing that. Quit. You can't sound out. I don't know why you started doing that. Stop doing that. Stop.
Once hailed as one of the most effective intervention models used in Georgia and across the country for decades, an Atlanta News First investigation uncovered evidence reading recovery could be harmful to children.
The findings were not in the direction that reading recovery expected.
Henry May is a professor at the University of Delaware. Reading Recovery asked him to conduct the largest study of its program ever, tracking thousands of students in multiple states over 13 years. Last year, he published his results, showing the short-term impact to students largely positive. But then,
It wasn't until we looked at the kids' outcomes years later, when they reached 3rd and 4th grade, that we saw that the results had completely flipped, and that the differences between the students who received reading recovery and the comparison group that did not, the reading recovery kids were actually worse off. There was a negative impact of reading recovery.
If you have something that has research that shows that it is harmful, not only just not beneficial, but harmful to children, it should be banned.
while at least 19 states have banned 3Qing or walked away from reading recovery over the past few years, an Atlanta News First investigation uncovered Georgia State University continues to use it, running a training center for teachers to learn reading recovery methods to bring back to the classroom. Since 2023, school districts in 5 states, including Georgia, had paid the university $243,000 for the instruction.
I said I wasn't gonna get emotional today, but it actually literally makes me sad. If you could just walk a mile where we've been and what this does to a kid, who's gonna tell their parents that those kids and those systems drew the short straw? Who's gonna tell them that their school has chosen to train teachers in a method that we have evidence that shows not only does it not work, but it hurts kids?
Is Georgia State University missing the boat on this?
No, Georgia State's not missing the boat.
Dr. Caitlin Dooley is the chair of the university's Department of Early Childhood and Elementary Education. She does not believe reading recovery harms children, pointing to previous studies that have shown positive results.
It's been around for a long time. It has a strong scientific background, and so we are offering it when it's in demand. And there are still districts that are requesting that we provide that training, and we believe that it works.
The Reading Recovery Council of North America, which develops the curriculum, and Dr. Dooley both tell Atlanta News First investigates they consider Professor May's study flawed, pointing out that 75% of its original participants dropped out.
And then there was also no evidence of what we call dosage, which is the amount of intervention that kids got. So they could have had 1 lesson with reading recovery, or they could have had 50 lessons. We don't know from the way the study was written up.
Professor May says he and his team anticipated those critiques.
And we actually collected and then conducted sensitivity analyses to figure out whether or not those criticisms even held water. And it turned out that they don't. That no matter how we analyze the data, and no matter what other data we bring to bear, there is no denying that we see a negative impact of reading recovery. And the only explanation that I think is plausible is that reading recovery actually does harm students.
The criticism of Georgia State University doesn't stop with its Reading Recovery Training Center. A national education policy group says there are flaws with its elementary bachelor program, which prepares future teachers for the classroom. Last year, the National Council on Teacher Quality published this report after researching ways future teachers were trained in reading instruction. It gave 191 college programs in 44 states a failing grade. Georgia State University is one of them, in part because it found evidence of 3Qing and other methods it calls contrary practices in its course syllabi. Heather Pesky is the organization's president.
And the reason that we call them contrary practices, Andy, is because they run counter to the science. So these are instructional techniques that have actually been debunked by the science. Techniques that, in fact, are not good for kids in learning to read.
And the consequences to students is?
The consequence to students is it wastes their time. It can be harmful to them in learning to read. And ultimately, it means that the teachers aren't successful And that's a big part of the reason why in Georgia right now, only 1 in 3 fourth graders is reading proficiently.
Yeah, we don't put a lot of stock into the NCTQ report.
Why?
We think it's a very incomplete and inaccurate way of looking at the quality of our instruction. They have historically been a gotcha organization, and we believe that the quality of our instruction is very good.
While Dr. Dooley says GSU doesn't teach the 3Qing method, she also claims she's not sure what it is.
I guess I'm just surprised that you don't know what 3Qing is and states have banned it across the country.
I would say that it's because the term itself has been morphed into something that has no basis in the scientific research. When I see headlines like that, I think you're banning pretty much everything. Are we saying that kids shouldn't have pictures in their books? It doesn't make any sense.
I'm trying to get to the bottom.
Education systems in Georgia and across the country undergoing a reading reset of their curriculum.
Why does all of this matter?
We've got children across the state who are products of a failed intervention.
While some institutions hold on to long-time controversial teaching practices.
The reading recovery community has taken our results and simply dismissed them. And they have elected not to change and improve their program. And that to me is really disappointing.
You can't change what you don't know, but now that you do know, let's change and do what's best. Just do the right thing. Like, these are kids.
Georgia school districts are in the process of implementing a state-mandated reading curriculum referred to as the Science of Reading. It distances itself from the 3Qing teaching method, but it doesn't ban it. One state that did, Ohio, where reading recovery is based. In Georgia, reading recovery is still a state-approved early intervention program for struggling first graders. To learn which school districts in the state have invested in reading recovery over the past 2 years, go to this story on AtlantaNewsFirst.com. Thanks for watching Atlanta News First Investigates.